but I will sort of ease into my discussion about design issues by way of talking about my study, talking about some examples of longitudinal research, which I hope complement some of the things we heard about this morning, and then get into some of what we think we know or don't know about longitudinal study design. So the health and retirement study has been mentioned a couple of times already. It has a number of key features. It's public use. We get the data out to the research community within a few months of the close of data collection. It is longitudinal. It's very multidisciplinary. We cover a lot of ground in terms of the content of the study. I like to think of it as innovative. Certainly it keeps me busy. We're never doing the same thing twice as soon even though it's longitudinal. One of my colleagues, who now also works on the PSID, coined the term some time ago to describe the HRS shortitudinal, which means you do it for 2 or 3 ways and then you move on to do something else, as opposed to longitudinal. The study is nationally representative, as I'll talk a little bit in a minute, is increasingly part of the international network of permanent studies. One of the key metrics we track to make sure we're doing our jobs is how the users of the data are doing with what we give out to them. And you'll see, I think this is important for those of you thinking about how to evaluate longitudinal studies as they ramp up. The HRS started in 1992. You see how few publications there were even by 1994, and then it's been building over the first 20 years of the study at an increasing pace to where it's now over 120 papers a year for the last 5 years. So we think that's a pretty good output. We'd always be glad to see more, but that's a pretty gratifying example of this. The HRS was not designed kind of from birth to be what it is now. It very much evolved over time, both in sample and in content. I'll give you a little sense of that. So this is actually this is the simple version of the sample design because we interview couples, both partners in a couple of households. The cohorts are defined by the joint distribution of ages in the household. So I've shown it as if we're only interested in individuals. But the study began in 1992 with what was then called the HRS cohort, people who were then 51 to 61 years old, and the idea was to capture people just before the retirement decisions were going to be made, and then follow them through retirement, and they really hadn't thought much beyond that. The first thing that happened then was concern about the older part of the population, which led to a second cohort called the HEAD, being introduced in 1993, and that was people 70 years of age and older in 1993. Those two cohorts have been interviewed ever since then. Now we're on every 2-year basis with all of them. And then in 1998, we finally arrived at what we think of now as sort of the standard for an HRS type study that was described this morning, which is trying to represent the population 50 years of age and older. We did that by adding the cohort that was missing in between these two birth cohorts, which we call the children of depression age. And we added our first refresher cohort. One of the problems with aging studies is people get older. So you see in this diagram, as time goes forward, age goes up. So the only way you stay representative of the 50-plus population is to bring new people in periodically to refresh it. And that's a challenge. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but it's one of our main challenges to maintain the study over time. So what we've been able to do since then is every 6 years, we introduce a new 6-year birth cohort to refresh the sample. So what we call the early baby boom, the 53 birth cohort, the mid baby boom, and then next year the late baby boom, 1960 to 65. And that's the way a cohort study can stay population representative of an age group. This just gives you an idea of the sample size. I tried to match the colors to what they were on the previous slide. And so you see what happens is So the red at the top, that was the people 70 years of age and older, and they're dying out very rapidly. So the number of people left to do interviews is getting quite small. The code board is also getting fairly old. The HRS now about 75 to 85, so they're starting to experience significant mortality now as well. And then you see each of the new cohorts coming in. And so our goal now is to try and maintain this on a steady state basis, which would give us about 20,000 interviews in an average way, is to add a new cohort of about 5,000 people every 6 years to replace the deaths that occur in the older cohort. So we are a longitudinal study, but we're also very much in the cross-section of people. We need to be as good at that as we can. So one of the main virtues, I believe, of having a standing population representative longitudinal study is you can use it as a launching pad for specialists. So in an interview, you can only cover so much ground. We try to pack a lot in. Our interviews run close to 2 hours on the telephone and 2.5 to 3 hours per person. So we're pushing the limits with these interviews like. So we really can't add much more to the main interview, but we do these other things in between the waves as specialized study. So the largest of these are in-depth studies focused on specific types of problems. So dementia, as was mentioned, is a very big issue in aging populations. And so in 2002, we did a study called the Adams Study, Aging Demographics and Memory Study, in which we did a very intensive neuropsychological evaluation of about 850 people, sampled from the HRS, and we took them from the HRS. We knew exactly how well we did at representing every part of that population, age, by race, by prior cognitive ability. So we could weight that to be very accurately representative of the whole population. We're doing it again in 2016 on a different basis, less expensive, interviewer-driven approach to assessing dementia. And we're doing that in conjunction with the MHAS in Mexico, ELSA in England, the LOSI study, which is about to begin in India, and hopefully some other partners very soon. So that's a big thing. It's particularly expensive, and you have a lot of extra money to do that. One of the first things I was involved with when I joined HRS in about 2000 was a study of diabetes, which was about as on the cheap as you could do a specialized study. So what we did was we took people in the HRS who reported having diabetes. We mailed them a questionnaire, which was fairly standard for the time, about how they managed it, how they felt about it, self-efficacy, kind of a standard set of things that people who study self-management of diabetes would be focused on. And then for the first time, we tried to do slower, louder, or slower?
No, slower.
I know Americans, so we just stop louder.
Yes, I agree.
The diabetes study, we sent a mailing to people with a questionnaire to mail back, and we also sent them a little kit, and that kit asked them to stick their finger and put a spot of blood on a piece of paper and mail that back, and that went to a laboratory. That was our first biomarker testing hemoglobin A1C, by which we could actually tell objectively how well they were doing. We've also done mail surveys since about 2001. In between every regular wave of interviews, we send a mailing on different topics. One of them is kind of fixed. It's on consumption expenditure, which we find too long to do in the main interview. So about 40% of the households do a consumption study in between. We've done things focused on prescription drugs. Most recently on nutrition. Because we're an interdisciplinary study, there's often a lot of jousting back and forth between people in different fields about which one is Do people like less? Which one is more onerous for people to work on? It's typically hard to find anything people like less than economic surveys, filling out how much they spent on things. But actually asking people to write down how much food they ate of various kinds on this 30-page questionnaire from the Harvard Nutrition Group turned out to be at least as unpopular as most of the economic surveys that we do. But still, we got 7,000 some responses, and again, we're able to do a pretty good assessment of nutrition. We do a lot with administrative linkages, as some of the other studies have mentioned. Administrative linkages supply data more accurately and more easily, if you have it, than asking people to report the same things. So on an individual basis, we ask people for permission to link to records of their earnings and benefits. So one of the points that was made earlier about these types of studies is they're at a real disadvantage in knowing what happened to people before they entered the study. They don't have much direct observation about what they got. Well, from the Social Security records, we get their earnings over their entire work life, which tells us exactly if they were working, but also how much they were making, and whether they switched jobs and other things. So that's incredibly valuable, but filling in some of that prior information. Looking the other way, Medicare is the national program of health insurance for people 65 and older. So we ask for linkage to that, and that gives us detail about what doctors' services have been provided, hospitalizations that occurred, and some information about diagnoses with that. In the U.S., we do have a national index of deaths, the highest death certificates nationally, and it's pretty complete, and we do to that. It helps a little bit with our mortality ascertainment. I'll talk about that in a bit. What's most valuable for, in terms of the value added, is we get good cause data. Good longitudinal studies is following people carefully can actually document deaths pretty well, and we do, but people can't really report someone's cause of death. Sorry.
Thank you. It has to go through ear first.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so National Death Index, good. We get cause of death from the National Death Index. We're working with the Veterans Administration. There's about 7,000 people in HRS who serve in the armed forces and are entitled to use the VA health system. Many of them don't. The VA system is not used by people who have other kinds of health insurance often, but we're doing that. We also do work linking employers, so to pension plans to understand what the rules and benefits are that someone's going to be entitled to from their pension plan, and we're also doing some census work. Up to 2006, HRS was primarily a telephone survey, and so some of the content in the study may seem odd to some people because we had to select things that could be done strictly on the telephone. And so the cognition measures, for example, are limited. In 2006, we made a major change in the survey where we decided to introduce in-person interviewing as a regular thing, and we did it on a half-sample rotation. So basically, a random half of the sample was assigned to give an in-person interview in 2006, the other half in 2008, and now they just keep alternating every way who gets the in-person. In the in-person interview, we do a number of direct measures, which I'll show in a second, of health and biological status. So it's very valuable for that, which we could possibly do. We also use the opportunity to do something that the ELSA study introduced, which was to leave a questionnaire with the respondent following the interview to get some extra content. And both we and they tend to focus that on psychological measures, well-being, stress, social support, that type of thing. So the main components of this new interview included direct measures of height, weight, and waist circumference. A lot of people, when we did this, thought, oh, yeah, it's probably really important to measure people's weight, because everybody lies about their weight. And so we did some analysis of the self-reported information against the measured information. And it turns out that the errors on weight were really rather small. There's maybe a small tendency to understate weight, but it's not very great, and it doesn't contribute very much to error in BMI. In an older population, however, where you have more misreporting is of height. And the reason for this is mainly that people think of their height like they do their name. They got it at a certain age and it's going to stick with them forever, and they don't want to accept the fact that with aging they have gotten somewhat smaller. And so you can see that the tendency with height is for people to over-report height somewhat, and to be honest, a little more so for men than for women. So that actually turns out to be, in some sense, the more valuable measure to obtain by doing measurement. And waist circumference, a lot of studies do waist-hip ratio. We didn't do that, partly because some analysis suggests that waist alone is as good at predicting most of the things that waist-hip ratio predicts, and also because in the context of touching the respondent and taking the measurement, measuring around the waist was fairly benign, but measuring around the hip kind of got people into trouble. So we felt like trained nurses could do that okay, but we didn't really want to introduce that with our interviewers. We use a automated cuff to do blood pressure, and that works pretty well. Our data correspond very well with other national surveys and other forums to test it. We introduced physical performance measures, so walking speed, a fairly short walk, so it can always be done in most homes, but it's a pretty good measure of people beginning to have ability. Grip strength, which is one of the best single measures you can take to identify people who are losing strength as they age. We do a very simple version of lung function. Elsa does the detailed spirometry. We just do what's called a puff test. You blow as hard as you can into this tube, and it measures that. And it seems to work pretty well as a predictor of outcomes as a reflection of, for example, smoking. We also do a balance test to detect people who have problems. So there was a lot of excitement when we did this around this idea of drawing blood spots. So as I said, we did it in the diabetes study and measured A1C. So now we're doing this on everyone. Again, this can be done by a regular interview. In the U.S., a regular blood draw from Maine requires certification as a phlebotomist. And so our interviewers were not allowed to do that. But blood spots can be done with just an interview. And so we do this, and these are the main assays we've done from it: A1C, cholesterol, C-reactive protein, and a kidney marker called cystatin C, which has turned out to be a surprise. The laboratory suggested we do this, and it's been very valuable. It's a really good measure of kidney function, and therefore a very good predictor of mortality. One of the things we didn't anticipate when we got into this business, we were very worried about would the respondents do it. They actually did. Would interviewers accept the job of doing this? And pretty much they did. In fact, a lot of them were sort of excited about it. So our side of things went really well. The part I wasn't worried about was the laboratories, and that's where we got a really big headache. So our first headache was we were working with a private company that was one of the few that marketed these tests and had FDA approval to do them, so we trusted them. And indeed, the quality of the work they did was pretty good until in the middle of our 2008 field period, they went bankrupt and called us and said, "We're done." And so we had to actually send a truck to Chicago to their offices to collect the samples that were still sitting there and bring them back on dry ice, find a place to store them. So it was quite a nightmare of an organization. and then we had to scramble to find another lab, and then we had to discover the fact that laboratories doing exactly the same assay don't necessarily get the same values. And so that started an entire business of doing comparisons across these labs and between the blood spot labs and whole blood labs for the same people. So we now understand much better how all this works, and there are ways to sort of adjust the lab results. We also collected a saliva sample from which we extract DNA, and that's been one of the big new additions to HS. So we will soon have completed about 19,000 people on a 2.5 million SNP genome-wide scan, and on top of that, the so-called exome chip protein controlling genetic markers. And the NIH was maintaining something called DB-GAP, which is the distribution portal for genetic data for all NIH studies, and so we use that to distribute the data in a secure way. So, and there's something like 120 approved users already on the genetic data, even though it's still partially there. This coming year, in 2016, we have now funding to do a whole blood draw. So the ELSA study, instead of the way we do alternating face-to-face to get this money, uses a nurse visit. So they would send a trained nurse to the home, and the nurse would draw blood and also perform some of these other tests that our interviews do. We really struggled with how we could do anything like that in insurance because it's so expensive. In England, you can have a centralized group, these nurses, and send them out places, and they can get back that night with the samples. In the US, it's not possible, it's much too large. So it took us a while to find a group we can work with who can send enough phlebotomists around the country to do this. So we're very excited about this, and we have a fairly ambitious menu of assays to focus on some of the more interesting things about aging and learn from blood, which have to do with the aging of the immune system and the development of inflammatory processes. All right, so Rebecca showed this geographically. I'm going to show it in a different way. The expansion of studies built off of the HOS model. So these are studies which have a similar questionnaire, have commitment to public release of data, generally have a nationally representative sample, so are pretty comparable to HOS investigation. So the first one was MHOS here in Mexico. I collapsed odd years and even years just to make it easier to collect. But in 2001, 2003, you had the first 2 years of MHOS. Then this long interval before it resumed in 2012 and 2015. The ELSA study in England was the next time along, and they have maintained the every 2-year rhythm since their first wave in 2002. The SHARE study is a very large study. It's small per country. Most countries have only about 5,000 cases, but it's a lot of countries. So it's a pretty large study. In current waves, it's almost 50,000. So it's very large. The next was in South Korea. That was the first Asian HOS-like study. Then the Irish study, to me, probably the biggest accomplishment of all of these up to this point was the study in China. China does not have a tradition of public release of data. They really don't have a strong tradition of research study sampling. And this group just built everything from scratch to design their sample, design actually even the listing strategies, how they went out and determined who was in a community and had to involve themselves. So it's really a tremendous accomplishment, and they have public release data. India is about to start at the end of this year, and their target is 50,000 interviews, which I wish them well to do. Brazil has actually begun midway through collecting a sample of about 10 to 12,000, and there's a small study beginning in South Africa. There are some others which Rebecca mentioned, which are cousins, I would say, not sisters of HRS. If you look at the DNA, they're not quite as close. But what's interesting to me is that the HRS, which is average about 20,000 interviews every week, will now be multiplied tenfold internationally to about 200,000 interviews in this year and the next. So it's a pretty impressive expansion. So now I just want to give some examples of some of the research that can be supported by these longitudinal designs. So this may be a surprising one for a developed country to focus on infectious disease. If you think of developed countries, chronic diseases are the only thing that matters now. But actually, one of the more high-ranking causes of death in the older population is sepsis. That is a very severe infection. It's not just bronchitis or a little cut. It's a system-wide infection, many of which will begin as a pneumonia, but they become very severe. And doctors knew this was a problem, and knew many people died, but as doctors do, they tended to study people who were in the hospital and whether they survived to get out of the hospital, and they didn't really know much else about what happened to those people who were out there in the first place. So Jack Washington, who's an emergency room physician in Michigan, did this study using the HRS, where they were able to look at, okay, who gets sepsis and how do they compare to other people in the study. And then once someone has had sepsis, how does their future course compare to somebody else who was otherwise likely to be naturally? And what they found was that controlling for all the things that might predict who got sepsis in the first place, getting it versus not getting it, resulted in really severe decline in cognition and function for those people. And that had never been demonstrated before. No one had followed data to do that. And so this actually had a pretty big impression on the medical community. So to get to this result, you needed a Medicare record because sepsis is not something we get from a survey. You had to observe it in the Medicare. You wanted to have longitudinal data before the event of sepsis so you could control for a lot of the characteristics of people. Because you don't want to just compare the sick people who got sepsis to the well people who didn't. And then you need the longitudinal follow-up. So another one was done by my predecessor as PI of HRS, Bob Willis. There's a lot of interest in retirement age and manipulating retirement ages with policy as a means of helping the public finances in face of an aging population. And so the question is, well, what would be the effect on things like health if we actually move people towards later retirement? And so one of the interesting questions has to do with cognition. So Bob Willis and Suzanne Roeder exploited the international community of HRS studies in order to study this. So when you look within a country and say who retires early, who retires late, that's going to be very correlated with things like their health and their cognition. But when you look across countries which have very different retirement policies, you have countries in which people retire early because that's what the policy directs them to do. In others, like the US, they retire late because the policy doesn't really encourage retirement. So they can use that international variation in policy as an exogenous source of variation in retirement, and then look at what happens to decline, and they find that it delays cognitive decline. So working longer seems to promote people staying better cognitively for longer. So again, they needed longitudinal data on cognition that was comparably measured across many countries with different policies. Finally, and this one, I'm stretching a little bit the value of the longitudinal for this, but I think it's an important paper. Caring for dementia is an enormous burden on society. And an important question, and one I hope the international community of digital studies will help answer, is how does this vary across countries, but how is the burden shared? How much do families bear the burden? How much goes through market-provided care? And how much is from government? So Michael Hurd and colleagues used HRS to make an estimate of this for the United States. So the cost of dementia are quite high. It's about $200 billion a year for caring for people with dementia. Of that, about a quarter is government-supplied health care. So that's Medicare, basically. So that's people with dementia compared to other people with this, all the other same health conditions. Cost about $50 billion a year. The private market, which is mainly nursing home insurance that people buy, is another quarter or a little more than what Medicare pays for. But fully half of the burden of caring for dementia is family care, not through the market. And how do you get to that estimate? You ask, well, you assign a value to what someone's wife's effort is worth when she cares for her husband. And those, you can do that in different ways, and you can get a little different number. They use something like how much would it cost for those number of hours from a hired healthcare worker. Most people prefer to have a family member rather than a hired worker, so it probably is underestimating the value of the patient. But it's an important finding when you think about policy, because for government to say, for us to say to government, you should take on the full burden of caring for dementia, you're asking them to go from 50 billion to 200 billion in cost if they were. And so what went into this finding, we measured cognition, the dementia sub-study that we did helped to estimate dementia status, Medicare spending from the Medicare records, nursing home use from HRS, and these hours of unpaid care provided by family members also from the HRS. Quickly on policy, so all of these studies have to be apolitical. We don't advocate for a particular point of view or a particular set of policies. And we don't want to advertise to our respondents, oh yeah, we're responsible for Obamacare, and that was us, because there's a lot of people who like it, and there's a lot of people who don't, and you can't win by choosing a side. So we don't like to take credit for specific policies, but we do appreciate that we think we contribute to the careful evaluation of policies and keeping policy projections honest. So the studies used widely in government agencies that have to score a policy proposal, evaluate what its impact would be. Congressional Budget Office, Treasury, Social Security Administration, and then it's used by many researchers who also do their own assessments of policies. To give a couple of examples, so health insurance has been a major area of policy activity in the U.S. As I said, Medicare provides medical coverage to 65 and older, but it didn't used to cover prescription drugs. In 2006, Part D of Medicare introduced prescription drug coverage. HRS contributed somewhat to establishing the need for this. So this shows how many people reported not taking all their medications because they couldn't afford them as a function of their income level and whether or not they had insurance coverage for their prescriptions. So you see income matters, but also coverage matters. So people who have low incomes and no coverage have pretty high rates of failing to take medications as they should. And then some research showed that that actually did translate into some health consequences. So we then followed our sample through the rollout of Part D to look at what happened. We did some special surveys on their prescription drug use before and after, and looked at some other characteristics. So there was a lot of concern because this was basically run through the private sector. This was going to be a very cognitively difficult thing. People weren't going to be able to figure out how to navigate the system. And that turned out to not really be true. Most people manage to do it pretty well, and what you see is the take-up was lowest among people who really didn't use prescription drugs to begin with and didn't benefit much from it. And then when you look at the before and after, the people who signed up for it before they signed up for it had very high spending, and as a result of signing up had lower spending. The people who didn't sign up for it had before lower spending, and then their spending didn't change much. So it seems as though people did what we would expect them to do in terms of policy. Just briefly, all Obamacare, so the lack of health insurance prior to age 65. There's been some research about what people get in terms of what people don't get and what the implications are for Medicare. So one of the consequences is people in their 50s, when they start to develop a lot of chronic conditions, if they're not getting good care, when they hit 65, then they become more expensive for Medicare to take care of because those conditions have been going on not very well managed. So we'll see whether providing extended coverage will help. All right, so now I'm going to get into some more methodological stuff. So I mentioned mortality and HRS. So we have a sample of about 25,000 people over age 50. They produce roughly 2 deaths per day. So mortality is a pretty important thing for us. I think it's one of the most important things to know. We try to obtain an interview with next of kin when we discover someone has died. We ask what happened since the last interview, conditions around death, disposition of the estate, things like that. And as I said, we link to the death. So one important thing to do is to see whether your mortality looks like it should. So for the HRS cohort that started in 1992, if we say how many should still be alive at every future year following the life tables, that's what that graph looks like, and that's what our actual survival looks like from the HRS cohort. If I take the cohort that was introduced that was older in 1998, the COVID cohort, they have a steeper decline from 98 and death. The low baby cohort that was introduced in 98 was very young. Not many died, but we tracked that very well. One cohort where we don't do perfectly was that ahead cohort, people 70 years of age and older, in which our mortality looks a little less than the total population. The reason for that is we excluded people who lived in nursing homes from the baseline. In the longitudinal study, we follow people into nursing homes and attempt to keep them in the study, but at baseline we didn't recruit. So the sample began with a slightly healthier group, and that's what we see mortality. So our mortality ascertainment is extremely good. And mortality is important to all the disciplines that use HRS. Everybody cares about that. So sociologists talk about social isolation as a risk factor, and you can see people with high measured social isolation have about twice the risk of death as people with low social isolation or lots of social networks. Psychologists measure things like personality. More conscientious people have lower mortality than people with low measure of conscientiousness. I can also say from research I've done, it matters to your spouse. So even if you're not very conscientious, try to marry someone who is, because that helps. But of course, economists are the king of the social sciences, and so the gradient in wealth is actually the steepest of the things I've shown you, and the bottom quintile of wealth has more than 3 times the risk of death. This is in the U.S. I wouldn't necessarily generalize that. So it's also critically important to assessing survey quality. I want to thank Rebecca for sharing some unpublished data from the MHOS, so I can talk about this with, I hope, a relevant comparison. So for the first interwave interval, 2001 to 2003, MHOS in 2003 interviewed about 89% of the people who they interviewed in 2001. HRS for the same time period, 2-year interval, about 88%. So that looks pretty similar. When you look at the different categories of people who didn't do an interview, you see differences. So in HRS, our measured mortality is quite a bit higher. Now the HRS sample is probably older. But still, that's a pretty big difference. I don't want to talk about not eligible. Not eligible is not a category. I find it's often used to hide non-response, but I'm sure there's some reason why these people are not eligible. And then you look at loss, and so MHAS lost almost 4%. People that couldn't find them. HRS, very low rates of loss. HRS has higher rates of refusal. MHAS, very low rates of refusal. Then I look at the tenure. So MHAS had this very interesting hiatus, and they had to come back and find the old sample many years later. Compare these results, and you see now their interview rate is quite a bit higher than HRS for the same group. But more than all of that is explained apparently by differences in mortality. So HRS had a very high death rate from those groups 10 years earlier. MHAS did, I would say, a remarkable job of finding people in 2012, but still 7% were not followed successfully. HRS, after 10 years, still only about 0.5% that you couldn't find in 2012. Again, our refusal rates are higher, and you see we have this category called removed, which is people who we've had to take out of the study in a permanent way, about 2%. So conclusions, MHAS is clearly better than HRS at obtaining interviews with located survivors. So I understand everyone comes to praise Yemegi, so I would praise Yemegi for their work, doing the field work for MHAS. They do a remarkable job of getting interviews. I think they did a good job locating people. It still appears to be worse than HRS, but it's unclear whether MHAS is as good at determining mortality. Someone asked the question earlier, there's no death index in Mexico. You can't really verify the survival status of an individual in Mexico. And so it's hard to tell whether failure to locate is failure to locate a living person who's moved somewhere, or failure to identify death of someone who's died. Now, use of life tables won't help you on an individual basis, but it will help you understand whether you're missing a substantial number of deaths. So if you were to calculate how many deaths should have been expected from the MHAS sample over this time period using the life tables for all of Mexico, you should be able to calculate how many of your lost are really lost survivors and how many are really lost death. And so it may be, in fact, your location job is actually better than your test. So now let me talk a little bit about methods of research on longitudinal studies. And the first thing to say is there's not a lot of it. Relative to, I think, the importance of longitudinal studies and the importance of methodological knowledge to how we do them. The main reason, I think, is because once you're charged with maintaining a longitudinal study, you don't want to run any risks. If you think this is good, you don't want to stop doing it to test the effects of doing it. You're going to do it. And so it's very hard to make us stop doing something that we believe in. It's a little bit easier to get studies sometimes to adopt something new if it has been shown to. But finding someplace that can test it is not always easy. So there is occasionally discussion about creating methods panels, and the Understanding Society study in the UK has, I don't know if they still maintain it, methods panel. These are very expensive. You're maintaining a longitudinal study just for the purpose of doing tests of different things. And it has to be big enough that if you found an effect, it would mean something. It would be statistically meaningful. So it's quite expensive, actually, to create test beds to do experiments. And the second thing then is that generalizability is an issue. So if you had, again, the Understanding Society, that methods panel is very much similar to the main study in terms of who's in it. But if you had a methods panel that consisted of a convenience sample, you question whether the findings there can generalize to a full study. And also, internationally, we have to say, things that work in one place may not matter, may not work somewhere else. So often it has to really be specifically the population you're studying. So everyone bows to Lukowski Cooper and breaking down the steps to the response. So you have to locate people, find them again. You have to make contact with them, which often is fully legal at first. And then you need to get their cooperation with what you want to do. And at each step, there's some different strategies that you can follow. Alfonso also asked me to talk about item non-response. I would just say, in the modern study like HRS, item non-response and cooperation start to become a very confused, blurry line. So if someone doesn't do blood tests, is this item non-response or non-cooperation is part of the survey? So it becomes quite a blurry distinction. Cook and Ostell raised some ideas about how to get information about moves between your interview waves. The HRS, we rely mainly on electronic source of passive tracking. The postal office indicate someone's address has changed. But it does pretty well, and then we do an active tracking if we're unable to find someone where we expect to find them, when we start the field group. I understand Negi for MHOS actually went out in advance and tried to locate everybody first before they sent them. That would be pretty expensive, I think, in the US or So studies have mainly experimented around getting respondents to tell you whether. Usually that takes the form of sending a letter or a postcard with a return to send in their information. So there's options about how to encourage them to return their card. There's been some experimentation with that. The British Household Panel Study, which is now part of the Understanding Society, had an experiment with how much incentive, how to deliver the incentive to get people to do this. So you can send them a card and say, please send back where you are. And if they did that, they have a 7% response rate. If they sent with the request a gift card voucher, which is the usual incentives that they got a 40% response. And if they said, well, we'll send you this gift card if you send that card, they actually got lower. And I don't know if this is well established, accepted as a general phenomenon, but I am a pretty firm believer that in a longitudinal study, paying people in advance for something you're asking them to do is a more effective strategy than saying we'll pay you after the fact if you do PSID in the US also did an experiment. They didn't find much different effect from different incentives. We're designing materials in different ways. But in the group that they mailed to twice, they got a better response. So reminding people, it turns out, can be helpful. But I also have to note, the overall rate of return PSID was much higher than in the HPS. So it may be that the incentives weren't operating at that higher level. All right, so now let's talk about design strategies to reduce attrition and improve cooperation. I want to share with you the biggest insight I know in the last 40 years of research. If you want to retain people in your study, don't drop them from your study. This seems like a pretty obvious point, but early on, many longitudinal studies were on this very fast annual basis, and if someone missed one, that was it. They didn't try to go back and find them. And so that was essentially a first non-response was defined the same as any other attrition. In current practice, it's very important to distinguish between someone refusing to do an interview this time and someone who's required to remove them permanently from your study. The effects of this have been studied through the HRS in a kind of simulated way. They took the 2004 sample and looked at how biased the sample was from attrition that occurred between 1992 and 2004, found that the people who had actually dropped out permanently were not very different from the people who stayed in. There was not much bias in the sample. Then they said, well, let's imagine that HRS had never gone back to people who had missed away. They were out too. Take those people out of the sample. Then you get not only a smaller sample, but a more biased sample. So it turns out that this practice of trying to go back and get people who missed one or more waves is pretty successful at both maintaining sample size and its representativeness. Our experience is someone who missed last wave we get maybe 30 to 35%
faltó a la
response
última
the
ronda,
next one.
hay un 40%.
But then again, the way after that, we get maybe 30% response. So if you keep trying, you bring them back in,
Sigues intentando,
and
puedes hacer que vuelvan
cumulatively,
de
it adds
manera
up to
cumulativa.
a lot. Other things that studies do are strategies to maintain interest, so study newsletters are pretty common in longitudinal studies, try to make participants feel they belong to something that's bigger than themselves, show them the value of the research that comes from the data. There's been some experimentation with targeting the message, particularly in studies that are very diverse in terms of age or other characteristics. Maybe the younger people want to hear something different from older people, so you tailor it to that. Social media is something people talk about. It's certainly a way to engage people. From my perspective, it's also a good way to risk their confidentiality and anonymity. So we do not use social media with our participants. Another idea that had some currency, in fact, HRS research had promoted this, was that using the same interviewer as you did previously with that subject was beneficial to response. You maybe establish some rapport with the person and you trust this person. This would be better than stranger. But prior wave interviewers who are still with you tend to be the better ones. The ones who aren't still with you are the bad ones, and the ones you just hired are less experienced. So there actually was an experiment done by Peter Lynn and others where they randomly designed their wave 2 to assign people to the same interviewer or not, and they graded the interviewers just in 3 categories based on experience and ability. And what they found was that the interviewer quality did matter, that better interviewers got better response rates, but conditional on that, the same interviewer didn't make any difference. So if you're replacing the good interviewer with a bad interviewer, yes, that was a bad idea, but if you're replacing a good one with a good one, it didn't matter. If you're replacing a bad one with a good one, it actually could be better. So worrying about matching the same interviewer doesn't seem to be terribly important. Another issue, this is a little more narrowly focused. When we introduced our fingerstick blood test in 2006, we had substantially lower cooperation from African Americans than whites. And the race of the interviewer didn't matter. That racial difference between respondents was there. In 2008, we did better, and particularly so with African Americans. There's still a gap. And again, in 2008, race matching of interviewer to respondent made no difference. What seemed to matter was just that all the interviewers got better training, by then had some experience, so they did better in general. And it seemed as though the black respondents were perhaps more sensitive to interviewers not being confident about this new procedure. Another one, which is more specific to aging studies, is cognition and non-response. So there's a lot of studies about what are the characteristics of people or households that predict to non-response. The income or education or many things. But of all those things, the one that translates directly into ability to do the survey is cognition. People who are beginning to have cognitive impairment find these surveys very difficult, and they will not do them. And you need to keep those people in your study if you want to be able to study the effects of cognitive. So a proxy is someone who completes an interview on behalf of someone else who won't or can't. And HRS has a written established protocol for proxy interviews. It turns out this makes a big difference. So the ELSA study in its early ways did not do proxies much at all. And so the blue bars there show you the next wave non-response as a function of cognition in the prior wave. So people who scored badly on the cognitive tests in the prior wave had very high non-response at the next wave in ELSA. And then it flattens out at the top line. HRS is those teal-colored squares at the bottom. When we include the proxy interviews, it's almost flat. There's essentially no relationship between cognitive status and getting at least some kind of interview. But if we take the proxies out, we have the same pattern as the ELSA study at the bottom. Finally, I left the most controversial one to the end, and I'll try to do this quickly. Financial incentives vary widely. They vary widely within the HRS family. So HRS, we send a check, and also a gift card, share would answer my question. Non-response is a problem there. Charles, China study actually uses a small incentive. Mexico, Brazil, and India, no. You use eyeglasses. Yeah, reading glasses. Rather few experiments have been done. In general, it doesn't seem to make a big difference for us for the very resistant cases. General observations, they seem to matter most where attachment is lowest. And interviewers are often very substitute for financial incentives. But male surveys benefit a lot. We did one. It got a 10% boost from 20 versus 0, but also a 10% boost by follow-up. All right, so summary on coaches nutrition: get the best interviewers you can, get back to everyone every time, use proxies, engage respondents, use incentives if you think they help. I'll skip through item on response if you have questions after you do it. I just want to say longitudinal studies, yes, you can.
Thank you very much, David. We have a lot of time for questions, I think. So I open up to the audience. Questions?
You showed us some strategies to reduce the sample during your studies. But I want to know how much do you have a trade-off between keeping them and the health effect that you could have, given that they know that they are treated, that they change their behaviors because of the information that you're giving and things like that. Like, how big could that be? I know that keeping them is the first thing you have to do, but how bad is the other effect that you're having?
So I want to be sure I know which effect you're talking about. So when we do, for example, blood pressure measurement, we tell people their blood pressure. This could change behavior. Most doctors will tell you if that alone was enough to change people's behavior, there wouldn't be the health problems that we have. And so in fact, it often doesn't have that big of an impact. But I'm not sure if you're talking about some other aspect. That's it? Yeah. So people have started to look at these kinds of issues. Whether we report to someone that they have a high value of something. And my sense is you can find in large samples statistically significant effects of small things. It doesn't necessarily make a big difference. So I'm not at this point worried about this.
Okay.
I have two questions only. Regarding the methods of data collections, I mean the mode of data collections that you call telephone interviews, mail surveys, this combination of methods, I found in the literature they say that probably each one of them, or the combination of them, could lead to some kind of bias. I mean, because direct interview, telephone interview, and mail surveys, they have different biases, and when you combine them, that could cause some little trouble. How do you solve that?
Yeah. So let me tell you why I know what to think about that. So because HRS was going to do, well, so the baseline interview was always in person, we established that in person, and then for the first 10 years, always telephone after that. Except for older people who sometimes find telephone difficult and they'll offer in person. So we were very concerned with the mode differences between telephone and in person. And so there's a lot of studies, we actually did some experiments where people were randomly trying to learn the other, small sample, and the conclusion was between telephone and in person, for the question we were asking, there was not much difference, not much more. Where we almost always will find the motive is between anything that's interviewer administered, where the subject is speaking to a person, versus they do it themselves piece of paper or by the internet. And typically what you find is for things that I think of as relatively objective, like do you have high blood pressure or has a doctor told you that? It doesn't matter very much. For things like, do you love your spouse? It turns out it matters more. Everybody loves their spouse when we talk to the interview. When you fill it out on a piece of paper or the internet, a few don't. So psychological questions, sensitive questions, and my feeling is, ironically, often the self-administered is more honest than going through the interview for those kinds of questions, which is why I like the model of using these leave-behind written questionnaires for the psychological measures. I do. I understand in countries that people don't write or read.
Yeah, I have a second question that from most of the researchers, I've seen some longitudinal research that with some experience or few experience, they change the wording of the questions. So in a way that we cannot compare any longer. What's your suggestion regarding the change of order or improvement of the questions over time?
We've been working with colleagues in Thailand who finished an HRS type survey in Thailand baseline. And working with them, trying to get things translated and find out what they actually did. So it turns out the job of an interviewer in Thailand is actually a kind of sophisticated artisan craft activity. And what some of these interviewers say they do is they memorize the questionnaire. They go to the house with a blank piece of paper. They ask a bunch of questions, have conversations, however they want, and then they go back and fill in the questionnaire with what they think were the answers from the house. So this makes someone who works in a modern survey research organization gasp for breath, because we spend a lot of time training interviewers. Don't go off script. We write these questions this way for a reason. Read the question and record the answer. And we do things like tape record a certain number of those and play them back and give feedback to interviewers and something not doing it correctly. This varies widely. I don't know that you couldn't do a pretty good job of finding out about someone from having a relaxed, lengthy conversation. It's just not the way I do survey research. So some studies are maybe more in the middle. If there's some questions, but the interviewers feel free to reinterpret that and ask them in a different way. And I'm also a little reluctant to turn off interviewer intelligence. They sometimes can understand if the person is getting the point of the question or help them to get there. So you don't want to make it just a machine question either. So it's a tough trade-off.
We have time for another question. I actually have one. I remember that when I contacted you, I remember I said, I did no response, you need no response. It's a kind of important thing, especially in developing countries. Was at the time where I talked to policymakers or data generators, they say, we don't do longitudinal in Mexico because we can follow people. This is not America, this is not the UK. People here is very difficult to contact. So, what experiences or what strategies could HRS tell us about that? Should we really fear? Is it impossible to do it in Mexico because of this? Because we are going to lose people very fast, it's difficult, they don't give interviews, things like that.
I think this would really encourage MLS to take a look at the mortality thing, to be sure you have an accurate measure of how many people you're actually losing. Now, it is true In the US, where we have a system of social security numbers that help you track people, where we have a lot more electronic surveillance of everything, it is easier for us to find people probably than in Mexico. You also have many more people migrating out of the country, which creates a different challenge. So the environment in Mexico clearly is tougher to work in, but it seems as though a good effort pays off, and so to me, the best response is the own evidence of best practice in Mexico. I would say, if it's possible to mail something to people in between the waves, I don't know how it works with the Mexican post office. If someone has moved, if we don't know it, it'll come back to us. No, this doesn't happen. So, so I'm suggesting things that already they're going. But I'm happy, I work with Rebecca, and I'm happy to talk more concretely about specific studies. And of course, I deal with a study of older people, which is very different from studies of younger people in terms of mobility.
Thank you, David. I have questions for. I have time for another question. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to comment a little bit more about the question. In our experience in MXFLS, we were able to recontact 88% of the original baseline individuals in a 10-year period. Of course, you need a lot of resources, and you need to have special interview teams that are committed to really to locate and track the people and convince people to do the search, the answers. And there are many ways that you can do that. You don't need to bribe people for them to be willing to answer your instrument. But for example, in our experience, since we have health measures, we like to put health measures up front in the instrument before economic questions regarding income. And that helps us a lot, because then people think that we care about them, and they are more open to answer later on more difficult questions. And we were able to track individuals, including to the United States, and that was feasible by conducting a parallel fieldwork in Mexico and in the US in order to be able to track and locate those people who really were. And those were very difficult situations, because first we had to convince original household members to tell us where the relative was in the US. Second, we needed to validate the location of the information we were gathering, because sometimes they said, oh yes, he or she is in Washington, D.C. He or she is in Fresno, D.C. No, of course, that Fresno was in California, and D.C. is in the East Coast. And thirdly, once we pinpoint where the location in the U.S. that person was, we had to track them within the community and convince the individual that we were a reliable source to provide information to us, because that person could be afraid because of being undocumented, and we were able to do that. So my answer is yes, you can do longitudinal service in Latin American with difficult citizens.
Alfonso, one thing I should have mentioned, which is very obvious to most people who do these studies, get the information about friends and family who will know where they are. The first thing people do when they start to track someone who's not where they were is call those people and find out where they are. And that's the most effective strategy, and that you should be able to do well.
Thank you.
I have one.
Oh, yes. We have.
Regarding the missing data problem, I would like to really underline what you said, which is not to discourage the researchers from dropping out a specific person because they drop out from one way to the next. Because today we can handle even if we have missing data at one point and trying to recover that person later on, that will allow us to deal with missing data, because today we have more methodologies to deal with missing data. There are, as you know, in the literature, a lot of methods to deal with that. And actually, the message is not to discourage the researchers from conducting longitudinal studies because they're going to miss some person. But in the future, you can recover them and deal in the statistical analysis with missing data, which is better to do so than losing the person and losing the power of the study.
Absolutely, I agree. The other thing I had put in but didn't talk about, item non-response, which some people view as an argument against doing any kind of survey, but I still want to first of all, you have to have item non-response. It's very important to let people not answer a question they don't want to answer, because otherwise their only option is to not do the whole survey. So you need to have this. You just need to have methods for how you adjust for the missing data, and so there are a number of techniques we've developed, particularly around economic variables, that help capture a lot of that missing information in ways that respondents are okay with.
Hi, so I just had a comment on on what you said around kind of experimentation in survey methodological research. So I fully agree that we definitely need more kind of experimental studies. But as you said, not everybody is going to be able to have an innovation panel like Understanding Society has. So, but I think that shouldn't necessarily stop us from doing experiments in our studies. I work in London on some of the kind of large cohort studies that we have in the UK, and we've been able to, and I think when you do have a kind of large sample, you can actually embed experiments in the main stage of your data collection without kind of a huge amount of risk. I think that you're right, we're a bit risk averse, we don't really want to change things when we're in longitudinal surveys, but I think we do need to kind of constantly reflect on whether what we're doing is, is this the best, particularly in the context of kind of declining response rates and increasing costs, are we really using resources effectively? And I think embedding experiments in kind of the main stage data collection is something that can be done. And I would encourage, I'd be interested in whether that's been done in any of the Mexican studies, and I certainly would encourage you to consider doing that. I think we're unlikely to all have a kind of methodological.
My observation about a lot of the studies in the UK is there seems to be better integration of people with real methodological interest in the management and conduct of the survey. So it's not that we would necessarily oppose doing it. It's that somebody actually has to sit down and say, all right, gee, how would we design this, and what would we learn, is this power to actually get something, and that resource is scarce. So I agree with you. So I think things that create better conversation between people and so managers is
Yes, actually, this topic of putting together experiments and longitudinal data, I think is quite exciting. I think Susan Parker will talk about it tomorrow, about that connection. Okay, so I think you really pressed me. I can take another question, or we have a longer break. Longer break? Okay, longer break. So thank you very much. It was a fantastic talk.